Grade 9 Human Circulatory System Part 2. In this video presentation, we are going to discuss three topics under human circulatory system. They are the components of blood and their functions, blood transfusion and blood agglutination. Components of blood and their functions. The components of blood could be divided into two major parts. So the blood consists of two different layers. They are the blood corpuscles and the blood plasma. Blood corpuscles, they are dark red in color and they exist at 45% in solid form. And blood plasma, it is in pale yellow color at 55% in liquid form. So you see here, blood plasma, it is the liquid form where the solid blood corpuscles are suspended. We can divide these two layers when we are calibrating during medical testings. So when we have calibrated them, the red colored cells and yellow colored plasma would be divided into two layers. Once when we are shaking the test tube again, both the colors will be mixed up and it will be resulting in red colored blood. So we can give a classification for these components of blood. Blood, it is of two different layers, corpuscles and plasma. Corpuscles are what we term as the blood cells. So there are three types: red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Plasma, water, things soluble in water, things insoluble in water. So that is, there are some components which could be dissolved in water. They are the things soluble in water, and which are not dissolved are the things insoluble in water. Plasma mainly consisting of water. So these parts are what we are going to take one by one. Blood corpuscles. So the blood cells, there are three types we said: red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. Red blood cells or erythrocytes. Red blood cells we take, these are the red colored and biconcave disc-like cells which are clearly visible among the other corpuscles. It's very small, you can see the diagram here. They are biconcave in shape and they are visible clearly from other corpuscles, and about 5 million of red blood cells contained in 1 cubic millimeter of human blood. They form in red bone marrow within the bones. The lifespan of RBC red blood cell is about 4 months. Absence of nucleus in red blood cells provides a large surface area to absorb more oxygen. So these are the features of red blood cells, and there is a clear difference between the red blood cells and white blood cells. And why is that the nucleus is absent in red blood cell? Because when it comes to the function of red blood cell, that is the transportation of oxygen towards the cells, there is a pigment called hemoglobin present in red blood cells which can absorb oxygen and form oxyhemoglobin to transport oxygen to cells. One molecule of hemoglobin can combine 4 molecules of oxygen. So once it is combined, it forms oxyhemoglobin, and that is what will be transported towards the living cells, living tissues. So accordingly, the oxygen that we inhale, it will be absorbed to the blood and will be transmitted towards the living cells. And this is the function of red blood cell. White blood cells or leukocytes. It is a type of colorless corpuscle larger than the size of red blood cells but smaller in number is present in blood. That is, these white blood cells you take when it is compared with the red blood cells, they are larger but smaller in number. Red blood cells, we said there are about 5 million RBCs in 1 cubic millimeter, but there is only about 4,000 to 11,000 WBCs in 1 cubic millimeter of human blood. So they are with nuclei and form in bone marrow. And since there is a big difference between the number of both RBC and WBC, the ratio between red blood cells to white blood cells is 600 to 1. There are three differences between these red blood cells and white blood cells. They are: red blood cells are smaller in size than white blood cells, but white blood cells are smaller in number than that of red blood cells present in blood. And the next one is white blood cells, they have a nucleus, but red blood cells, they do not have a nucleus. So these are the three differences between red blood cells and white blood cells. So what is the function of WBC? The function is to protect the body from infectious particles entered the body. So these white blood cells defend the body by phagocytosis and producing antibodies. White blood cells, it provides protection to our body from all kinds of infectious particles, strange microbes entering into our body. That is done in two ways: phagocytosis and producing antibodies. Types of white blood cells. We divide the white blood cells into two based on the presence of granules. They are granulocytes and agranulocytes or non-granulocytes. If granules are present, they are called granulocytes, and there are three types as eosinophil, basophil, neutrophil. And there is a difference between them two. Eosinophil, the nucleus is completely segmented into two parts, but basophil, it is not completely segmented into two, and neutrophil, it is completely segmented into three parts. Agranulocytes, they do not have granules. There are two types, monocytes and lymphocytes. The nucleus of lymphocytes covers the entire cell, whereas the monocyte is partially covered up by the nucleus. So these are the two types of white blood cells. Accordingly, eosinophil, basophil and neutrophil are the granulocytes. Monocytes and lymphocytes are the agranulocytes. Platelets or thrombocytes. Platelets are the corpuscles without nuclei, which are fragments of cells that can be considered as cells in human blood. These platelets are not complete cells. They are the fragments of cells, and they are not similar as red blood cells or white blood cells. These are present at 150,000 to 400,000 in 1 cubic millimeter of blood. And these platelets are also formed in bone marrow, and they do have a lifespan of approximately 5 to 7 days. During the diseases like dengue and leptospirosis, platelet count drops drastically. So what is the function of platelets? The function of platelets is helping in the clotting process of blood. Platelets help in the clotting process of blood at a bleeding site. They contain thromboplastin, which helps in coagulation of blood. Internal or external bleeding takes place during injuries or wounds. So at this time, platelets help in clotting blood. That is, the platelets break down and release thromboplastin, which in return starts the process of blood clotting. There are 4 factors needed for blood clotting. They are thromboplastin, prothrombin, fibrinogen and calcium 2+ ions. So to start up the process, thromboplastin is needed, and that is what released by platelets whenever there is a need of blood clotting is necessary. Blood plasma. Blood plasma, we said, that is the layer present as liquid pale yellow color in blood. The main function of the plasma is transporting the substances dissolved in it throughout the body. All the particles, substances present in blood will be transported towards their target places, and that is done by blood plasma. This blood plasma mainly consists of water, and that is what it appears in liquid form. There are few examples we can give for this transportation process. They are: it transports the digestive products, minerals and vitamins towards the cells. All the digestive end products, vitamins, minerals are transported towards the body cells by blood plasma. And it transports the excretory products during biochemical reactions within the cells to the excretory organs. All what is produced as excretory substances, unnecessary substances, are taken towards the excretory organ as to release from our body, and that is also done by blood plasma. Plasma transports hormones, proteins, enzymes and gases to the relevant parts of the body. All types of hormones, proteins, enzymes needed for the body as well as the respiratory gases are taken towards their targeted points, cells in the body. That is also done by blood plasma. And there are many others, so these are few examples for the functions of blood plasma. So this is what we discussed about the blood corpuscles and blood plasma. So the next topic is blood transfusion. What is blood transfusion? This is the process of transferring blood from one individual to another. During any accidental needs, we have to transfer blood from one person to another, and this is what we term as blood transfusion. But this is not just simply done. There is a big process behind this, and there are certain conditions too. Here, there are two people interconnected with. One donates the blood, the other one receives the blood. Accordingly, they are the donor and the recipient. Donor is the person who donates blood, and the recipient is the person who receives blood. For a blood transfusion to be taken place, there are two factors should be compatible between the donor and the recipient. They are compatibility of blood group and compatibility of RH factor. That is, the blood groups of both the donor and the recipient should be compatible, and the RH factor too. So how they are compatible, how to find out whether they are compatible to each other. So let's take the compatibility of blood group first. We said there are four blood groups. They are group A, group B, group AB and group O. So how they become compatible is what shown here. Blood group A could be donated for group A and AB. Blood group B could be donated for group B and group AB. Blood group AB could be donated only for group AB, and blood group O could be donated for all groups A, B, AB and O. And this is what listed below. A could be donated only for A and AB, B could be donated only for B and AB, AB could be donated only for AB, O could be donated for all for A, B, AB and O. So accordingly you can see here, one blood group could be donated for all four types, and AB can receive the blood from all four blood groups. Accordingly, we name them as the universal donor and the universal recipient. So who is the universal donor? The person who can donate blood for all four types of blood is called the universal donor, and that is the person having the blood group O. The universal recipient is the person who can receive blood from all four types of blood, and that is the person having blood group AB. So accordingly you can see here, blood group O could be donated for all four types O, A, B and AB, and blood group AB receives blood from all four types of blood groups O, A, B and AB. The next factor is the compatibility of rhesus factor or RH factor. RH factor is also present and absent in blood. If RH factor is present in blood, that is said to be RH positive, and if RH factor is absent, that is said to be RH negative. So how this RH factor becomes compatible between the donor and the recipient? That is, RH minus could be donated for both RH plus and RH minus, whereas RH plus could be donated only for RH plus. Let me take an example. When we take the blood group A could be donated for both A and AB. So if we take blood group A plus, it could be donated only for blood group A plus and blood group AB plus, and if we take blood group A minus, it could be donated for blood group A plus, A minus, AB plus, AB minus. So this is how the rhesus factor becomes compatible between the donor and the recipient. So according to these two categories, we divide the blood groups into 8. They are A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, AB plus, AB minus, O plus and O minus. This is depending on what is the blood group and whether they contain RH factor or not. If these blood groups are to be compatible, only one factor that we have to consider, that is, blood group with the RH factor could be donated only for the blood group with the RH factor, means plus to plus. Blood group without RH factor could be donated for both the blood groups with or without RH factor, that is, minus could be donated for both plus and minus. So accordingly, we'll take the first donor O minus. Blood group O could be donated for all groups. So if we take O minus, since it is minus, it could be given for both plus and minus. So it could be donated for O minus, O plus, A minus, A plus, B minus, B plus and AB minus, AB plus. Blood group O plus you take, plus could be donated only for groups with plus. So that is, O plus could be donated for O plus, A plus, B plus and AB plus. And we take blood group A. Blood group A could be donated for A and AB only. And if we take A minus, it could be donated for blood group A minus and A plus, AB minus and AB plus. If we take the blood group A plus, it could be donated for blood group A plus and AB plus only. And blood group B you take, it could be donated commonly only for blood group B and AB. And if we take the blood group B minus, since minus could be donated for both plus and minus, group B minus could be donated for B minus, B plus, AB minus and AB plus. But if we take B plus, it could be donated only for B plus and AB plus. And when we take blood group AB, AB could be donated only for AB. So AB minus could be donated only for AB minus and AB plus. And AB plus could be donated only for AB plus. And this is how blood becomes compatible concerning both the factors, the blood group and the RH factor during blood transfusion. So in case if this compatibility is not concerned, or if there is a blood transfusion taken place in an incompatible way, there will be clumping of blood takes place. So that when a person needs to donate blood, he has to go through some medical formalities as to fill up the forms and to forward with all his details. Not only that, the person who is donating blood should be a healthy person without any diseases, any sort of blood issues or any allergy conditions. Because the blood to be donated is to be transfused for another person. If the donor doesn't have any sort of problems in his blood, with the problem with that certain medical issues, the blood is being transmitted. And that is why during this donation of blood, there are many formalities he has to go through. Anyhow, checking with all those conditions, only the blood will be taken. In fact, the age, the gender and the body condition will also be considered. And if there is any sort of historical medical treatments will also be considered during blood donation. Not only that, during an incompatible blood transfusion, once the blood is transferred into the recipient body, there will be clumping of blood takes place. And this is what we take as the next topic. And that is blood agglutination. So what is blood agglutination? Clumping of the transfused blood particles in the body of the recipient is called blood agglutination. Once the donor has donated the blood, and if this blood is to transfuse for another person, the recipient, in an incompatible way, after the blood transfusion, the blood starts clumping inside the recipient body. This is called blood agglutination. For an example, blood group A could be donated only for group A and AB. Let's say the blood group A has been transfused into a person having blood group B. Now what happens? A and B are not compatible, so the blood inside the recipient body starts clumping. Same way, let me take blood group AB. AB could be donated only for AB, but we are going to transfuse this AB for a person having either A or B or even O. Now the transfused blood starts clumping inside the body of the recipient, and this is what we term as blood agglutination. So accordingly, this happens when the blood groups of donor and recipients are incompatible, when the blood compatibility is not concerned. The coagulation mechanism differs between blood clotting and blood agglutination. That is, blood clotting is the ordinary clumping of blood as to prevent excessive bleeding when there is an injury or an internal bleeding. So when there is an injury or bleeding, the platelets at the damaged blood vessels will be breaking down, and they result a chemical process forming blood clot to stop bleeding. So this happens in everyone whenever there is a need of blood clotting. But blood agglutination is the clumping of blood only inside the recipient body due to the incompatible blood transfusion, maybe due to the incompatibilities of blood group or rhesus factor. So this is the difference between blood clotting and blood agglutination. At last, there are some favorable habits to maintain healthy circulation system. What are they? Maintain mentally less stressful lifestyle. Not a busy, stressful life, should be living a stress-free life. And also engage in physical exercises daily. Regularly we should have some sort of physical exercises. And maintain the correct body mass index, the BMI index value, according to the height and weight with a healthy diet. And reducing salt consumption, and that is not to be reduced at all. For an average level it should be consumed. Control conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes, that is also related with our diet. Adding more vegetables and fruits to the meals, more and more vegetables and fruits we have to consume, and reduce the consumption of fatty foods. The oil containing, lipids containing foods we have to reduce. Refrain from smoking and liquor. Have more concern if there is a family history of heart attacks, high blood pressure or diabetes. So if there is any sort of historical medical issues like heart attacks, high blood pressure, diabetes like conditions, we have to consult a doctor and get a record of our body condition too. And these are some favorable habits that we should have as to maintain healthy circulation system. So accordingly, we have brought you the second part of the 6th lesson of grade 9, human circulatory system. So in this video, we have discussed about the components of blood and their functions, as well as blood transfusion and blood agglutination. To get notified about our next videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel Science with Mohideen.